Hello everybody, I am Alpha Bird. Welcome to a new Steel Division 2 video. This time we are looking at the Battle Group After Action report for the 3rd Guards Mechanized Corps. Thanks very much to Mountain Hermit, was a new channel member, but actually I slightly changed my channel membership prices. So the Charlie Birds, I actually made that slightly cheaper. So if you fancy picking up some perks and supporting me to make these videos, then hit the join button, become a YouTube channel member, or at least check it out and see what perks you can get. Early access to videos and some exclusive videos as well. So we are looking at the 3rd Guards Mechanized Corps today. The tactic is going to be Maverick. And the 3rd Guards Mech were really strong at the start of the game, or early on into the, meta of the game. I don't think they're quite as strong as they are now, but they still can be incredibly potent, especially in the right hands. Most people play them on Vanguard and Maverick. We're going to do the same today. They do struggle a little bit with their heavy tanks, heavy equipment, so I think they do lean better towards an early aggressive income style, because that does also complement their aggressive infantry. We're going to go with Maverick, but perhaps in a future video one day, it'll be many weeks and months into the future. If we do come back around to them, we might try them in like a balanced setup and see how they do. Into the Recon tab, I've selected the Partisan snipers. Now, you'll have known in the past I've said that I'm not fantastic at snipers, but we're going aggressive, we're going Maverick, and I feel like the snipers in the bikes definitely help, shoot up early infantry with the 1,000-meter range. They really suppress early infantry units and allow you to pick up surrenders quite easily, or just destroy enemy infantry units. We've only got 3 of them, but they're definitely going to come in handy. And then we've got 2 cards of Razvedkas. I mean, everyone knows how strong Razvedkas are. They have the bazooka, and you really do need the bazooka in this deck to pick up some early kills with your infantry. You can be fighting in some quite tight close quarters combat, and your tanks aren't necessarily gonna, they're not the heavy tanks. So having that M1 bazooka there with the 180 millimeters of penetration to pick up those heavy tank kills, definitely worthwhile. Now, I've gone 2 cards in A phase. Some people might disagree with this. The other option is perhaps to move them into B phase. You get some more Razvedka, but there are often times where I will use more than 3 of these units in A phase, or will want more than 3 of these units in A phase. So I've decided to double up on the cards to allow me to do that. Some games I might bring out all 6 in A phase, and some games I might only bring out 1 in A phase. Ultimately, I've got 6 for the entire game, and 6 for the entire game is going to be perfect for me. Finally, we've got the T-34-76 Razvedka here in A phase as well. I think I had some points left over, and I believe, yes, this is a 1-point slot. So it's easy for me to put in an extra unit here to, use up that final point. So that's what I've decided to do with the T-34-76 Razvedka. It's going to help me in the tank game, because my early tanks are slow, whereas this thing is fast. Well, it is fast for a medium tank. 55 on-road speed is pretty fast for a tank. So having these T-34-76 Razvedka will help me to exploit gaps in the line that form, or, use them from the start and getting a tank a little bit earlier than you'll see in my actual tank tab. I think the other unit you could use is like a Razvedka. You also have the carrier Razvedka. Some people might like that. And the BA-64B I've seen used by a few people, the M4A2 Razvedka as well. You can get some decent sort of half tracks here to help you out in an early engagement, but overall I think I'd rather go with the T-34-76 Razvedka and just help out my tanks a little bit early on, and it does provide me with those extra 3 if I need them, if my tanks are going to go down. Over into the Recon tab, you'll see I've used all my slots. I mean, you get, look at this. I've used all my slots, and then look how many infantry units are left over. You get so much choice in the 3rd Guards Mech. They definitely are, a strong infantry division. You'll see most of my choices are in A phase, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. And then I've got 2 B phase cards and a C phase card, which is really just backup. I really don't want to have to be using that. It's just a 27 unit card. There's tons of them. It's there for backup. A lot of Maverick players wouldn't put that in. I'm not 100% sure whether it's needed. You might decide not to take it. You might decide to take it. Who knows at this point? Let's go through the infantry units. I've got the Avto Komroti. I've really got that for the 4 leaders here. 15 points, really cheap leader to use. They're not really to get into combat, but they can help out with the 2 Pepishas. They're really there because we're going to have a strong infantry presence early on into the game. So having 4 leaders rather than 3 leaders or 2 leaders, I think is going to help me out. And at 15 points, I'm saving 20 points by choosing the Avto Komroti over the Gvardia Komroti, which means I can afford 1 more Gvardia unit. I think those 5 points are really worth it when you go in a Vanguard Maverick aggressive style. I've chosen the Partisani DP with the Zis 5V. They're not fast into the battlefield, but I'm really choosing this for the 15-point infantry. They're a small squad at 6. They do have raiders, so they are a little bit better at operating behind enemy lines and with the stealth bonus, and they do come with the DP-28 machine gun. I think the machine gun is enough to keep this unit as a good unit. 15 points, I think 15 points is really just such a strong cost for an infantry unit that it's almost tough not to take a 15-point infantry unit. In this case, the strength is 6, so I think that just about allows it, in my opinion, about balance. But I think, you know, some of the 15-point infantry units, I'm not 100% sure about them. And then we're going to move on to the 20-point Gvardia. I'm just choosing these because they're cheap. You'll notice all my early infantry is mostly the cheapest infantry you can get. Partisani as well, 20 points. Great with the Molotov cocktails. Not quite as good as they used to be because I think other units have come in and are better now, and the LMGs definitely make a difference in the current meta, but the Molotov cocktail, 100% worth it. And these guys should be going in the forests. That's where I need to be using these Partisanis. Backing them up is the Avto and Machiki. 10 Pepishas, strong, 25 points. I've decided to put them in the M2 half tracks. These are going in the forest as well, so I don't want them to die. And, you know, my Partisanis are pretty slow anyway, and the Partisani DP, so losing a bit of speed on the M2 transport isn't going to hurt me massively. I've selected the Tanko Disanike to also go in A phase. I think we only get 6 M2A1 transports, so, you know, that's why they're in here. Use up all of those transports and have them in A phase again to help out with that Molotov cocktail. A really aggressive start to the infantry tab, and I think that's going to be vital for us with this division. And then B phase, we're going into the double card of Gvardia. Again, the 20-point infantry, 5 ticks, you can use all of these full cards. So half of B phase, you could just bring out my entire B phase lineup of Gvardia. It's just such a strong income balance, especially in the right hands. It really is. And then in C phase, you know, we're just keeping cheap infantry. They're good enough. They're cheap, but they're good enough. As long as you support them and use them in the right way and fight in the right manner, they're definitely good enough. So just because they're cheap doesn't mean they're not good enough to perform. So yeah, 20-point infantry all the way as far as I'm concerned with this deck. Moving on into the tank tab. And yeah, Valentine 9s. This is kind of rare for a 3rd Guards mech or a division really in general. Valentine 9s, I found them really strong. So if you've discounted Valentine 9s in the past, I think the range change has made this tank a hell of a lot better than it used to be. I think that combined with the price increases on the Emcha means that bringing in these Valentines earlier saves you, what, 25 points in cash per tank compared to what the Emchas were, I think, at the start of the game, which was 60 points. So I've decided to bring in the Valentine 9s in A phase and then the Emchas from B phase onwards. You know, B phase is where I get my huge tick of income. So that's where I want my Emchas. In A phase, I want as much onto the battlefield as quickly as possible to allow me to attack from A phase and especially into B phase. I want to be overwhelming my opponent with sheer numbers right from the very start of this game. So that's why I'm opting for the slightly cheaper Valentine Mark 9. The The downside to this tank, the huge downside to this tank, is the 25 kilometers per hour road speed. So a lot of the time, I'm using this tank in my starting setup so that it gets to the front line as soon as it possibly can. And a lot of my early income reinforcements are the Valentine Mark 9. I don't think there was a game that I played where I didn't use all 8 of these Valentine Mark 9 tanks. My advice, I think, try them. They're a fantastic tank now, and they're going to be able to duel enemy tanks, T-34s, Panzer IVs, Shermans. They have the extra armor, so they've got 85 millimeters of frontal armor. Not quite as strong as a Sherman, but certainly stronger than a T-34-76. So they can stand up to some punishment. And if you think T-34-76 versus Sherman, obviously the Sherman's going to win that. You bring out a Valentine, well, the Valentine's going to stand much more chance. But look at the penetration, 115 millimeters of penetration compared to just 100 on the Rozvedka. The huge difference, though, the rate of fire. Look at the rate of fire on that Valentine Mark 9, especially at 2 stars, 16 rounds a minute compared to 6 rounds a minute for the Rozvedka, the T-34-76, sorry, and 7 rounds a minute for the Emcha. It just shines on how fast it fires. And bearing in mind it can take more punishment than a T-34-76. This Valentine Mark 9 is a great tank, and I hope you enjoy watching it. I've got some good footage of it in action. Check it out. Definitely start using this tank. Have a look at it. Don't just discount it anymore, because in the past it would have 100% have been discounted. It just wasn't good enough. It didn't perform well enough, and the road speed massively let it down. But now, yeah, that road speed is still a huge limiting factor to this tank, but it performs so good now that it's worthy of a place in the deck. Into B phase, we've gone with the 2-star Shermans. We've got 2 cards of them, 10 tanks in total. I mean, that's 800 points. It's a huge chunk of point cost, so I'm definitely don't believe I'm going to need more than 10 tanks, which allows me to up-vet them to 2 stars. And Shermans, you know, everybody knows how well Shermans perform. I don't have to bang on about that, but you do want to be taking them at 2 stars if you can. In C phase, I've got a backup card, really. 15 Shermans in total. This is really a backup card. I'm not 100% sure how useful it's going to be, whether it's going to be needed, but this is when you're kind of winning the game and you're just trying to draw out the last 2-3 minutes to get you a victory. There's always going to be a Sherman left in this deck. That's kind of why the card's in there. But in the same stance, upvetting that to 2 stars, I think 7 would honestly be enough. I think 11 would be enough. It's just like a there in case you need it card. Moving into the support tab, the augmented, especially when on a Vanguard or Maverick income, they're a must pick for the deck. I mean, they're pretty much a must pick for the deck anyway, no matter what the income. But Vanguard or Maverick in a 1v1, you're always going to be taking these augmented. I'm going to bring in an MG42, a Partisani unit as well. And these guys are raiders, so they're much better than like the disheartened MG42s that we had in the previous deck. These guys will 100% do you the job that you need them to do. They are in a much slower transport compared to a normal MG42 team, so just be aware of that. You might get caught out if you're not aware of that. So like your SG43 can normally come in the Jeep transport, whereas these Partisanis can't. But the MG42 is definitely worth it when you compare it to an SG43. And then finally, we've got the Ombudsman. Ombudsman? Hopefully I've said that right. These are our commanders, and obviously we had to choose these guys. I mean, look at them. They're in a great camo. They just look fantastic. That we had to put these in the deck. I don't think there's many Ombudsmen in the game. Maybe I think they're more of a cavalry style commander. I think maybe the Ninth Guards Cav or a couple of the other kind of mechanized units get the Ombudsman, but they're not that common, so it's good to have them in the deck for that reason. They actually come with the Mosin Nagant sniper rifle, so they can perform really well. You've got to be a little bit careful with them because They are a commander, so you don't want them to die, but then at the same time, that sniper rifle can mean they actually can perform in combat. It's up to you whether you do use them or not. I mean, probably 95, maybe even 99 times out of 100 that I'd play with this game, I wouldn't want my ombudsman to get into combat. But then, if they do, they can perform. You'll note this is the first battle group AAR where I haven't got a Studebaker supply truck in. The support tab is really harsh with the activation points for the 3rd Guards Mechanized Corps, so we just couldn't fit a Studebaker Schnab in there. It does affect my artillery tab, which we'll come on to later. In the anti-tank tab, remember, we are a Vanguard Maverick division. We've got those bazookas, but we're just going to include the Gvardia Panzerschreck teams as well. 20 points apiece. If these guys snipe any kind of tank with that Panzerschreck, they're basically making you points. And in this deck, because your tanks are a little bit slower, because you've got to be so aggressive with Vanguard and Maverick, you are going to be pushing your infantry forwards without tank support. That's generally what happens. At some point in the game, you're going to find that that's going to happen. So having the Panzerschrecks in there, having the bazookas in there is definitely worthwhile. So you can snipe pretty much any tank in the game. I think it's worth it. I also nearly put in the Partisani PTRD. I just couldn't afford the slot cost. I mean, there is so much in this anti-tank tab that I'd want in here. PTRS 41 as well and Partisani PTRD. I choose the Partisani because they're cheaper at 5 points. But even without those, if they weren't in the deck, I'd still really kind of want to be bringing in the PTRS 41 team as well. On a Vanguard or Maverick deck, I've said in the past that I don't like the kind of style of the anti-tank rifle team rushing forwards, but Vanguard and Maverick, I kind of would use them for that, the ability to snipe transports. If you can snipe like 2-3 transports early on into the game and help tip the odds in your favor as a Vanguard or Maverick player, the amount of time that's going to give you to in terms of like control of the map is really going to be efficient for you. You can immediately start pushing. You snipe 3 enemy infantry teams and suddenly you well overwhelm the enemy in a certain position. You can push through aggressive on the attack and you can turn that into 2-3 flags. Like, the advantage that a PTRS team can give you is not to be underestimated, but there's just too many units here that I want to choose. And the M42 gun, the SU-76 MPTs, the SIS-3 guns, they'd all get into the deck as well. It's a really good anti-tank tab, not to be underestimated. The SU-76 MPT Averin does make it into the deck. I mean, it is the ace of the division, so we are always pretty much going to put in these aces into my battle group AARs. I think it would be incredibly rare not for me to include an ace. We do have a nice unique skin, although it isn't kind of that fancy when it comes to unique skins. It's not over the top fancy, but it is the ace of the division, so 100% is going to be in the deck. I do use it in occasion. At 45 points, the SU-76M is MPT is still an absolutely fantastic unit. The APCR shells is really what make it shine. 135 millimeters penetration at 1,000 meters. These guys can take out the medium tanks, and they're cheap enough to get you the value. So definitely still worthwhile. The SU-85 is coming in A phase, 2 stars. I don't need a lot. I don't need a lot of these units, so I'd rather only have 2 of them. These are kind of my desperation in A phase, must have something to penetrate at long range, because I've got the Gvardia Panzerschreck, I've got the Rezvedka in the Recon tab with the bazookas to do some short range like heavy AT. This is like my long range heavy AT option. 180 millimeters of penetration at 1,500 meters, or 145 millimeters of penetration at 1,750 meters. You'll notice no anti-tank gun in A phase. So this guy, I'm being really aggressive here. So my approach is to be aggressive in Vanguard or Maverick, and an AT gun is defensive. It's a defensive weapon. The M42 gun is probably a bit more aggressive because you can rush that thing forwards on a Jeep and get that into a very advanced position. Or if you do find yourself opening up in a pocket in the front, you've been able to rush infantry very far forwards. You can then rush in the M42 gun on the back of a Jeep and get an anti-tank gun into a position where the enemy is just not expecting it, and that thing can snipe stuff with side shots and it can hit transports as well. So the M42 gun is pretty aggressive, but if you think about other AT guns, they're all defensive weapons, and we want to be aggressive in A phase and B phase. So the SU-85 is going to perform that heavy AT role in A phase. Is pretty much my only thing to do that outside of the close range infantry AT weaponry. B phase, we're going to bring in the ZIS 257 mils. So these guys are here again for that long range APCR penetration. 1,000 meters isn't that long range. I must get used to this with a ZIS 2 gun because I am forgetting that this APCR range is just 1,000 meters on the ZIS 2 gun, not very long range. But the 120 millimeters of penetration on the AP shell is long range at 1750. I've got to get used to that because it is something that I'm currently not performing that well with in my playstyle to date. I keep forgetting that limited range on the ZIS 2 AT gun because this thing used to fire at 2 kilometers range with the APCR at 185 millimeters penetration, and yeah, you had drop off, but at 2 kilometer range it would still perform like one of the best AT guns in the game. Whereas really with the ZIS 2 now, you kind of, because of the price is okay at 50 points, so you can snipe like a Sherman at 1,750 with the normal AP shell. You can snipe a T-34-76, you can snipe a Sherman, you can snipe stuff at that range and make value, but really this gun is here to take out Tigers, Panthers, IS-2s, King Tigers. That is the job for this ZIS 2 gun. So in order to do that, I need to be using the APCR ammunition, really, which means I need to be fighting at 1,000 meters. But if you restrict yourself to fighting in that way, look at this. At 2 stars, 75% hit chance, 16 rounds a minute. That tank is going. If that tank survives, I'd be incredibly surprised. If you use this ZIS 2 gun in the right way, there ain't no tank surviving. That's as far as I'm concerned. Maybe a King Tiger can get a bit more lucky with that frontal armor, but at 1,000 meters, 75% hit chance, 16 rounds a minute, I'm betting on the ZIS 2 gun in those circumstances. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is the tactic here is these ZIS 2 guns are not coming in at the start of B phase. These ZIS 2 guns are coming at the end of B phase or at a point where I'm comfortable. I have to be at a 15-9 before I'm bringing these ZIS 2 guns in, really. That is my feeling. Because these ZIS 2 guns are to get really far forward and to hammer the enemy heavy tanks when they're trying to push back in C phase. That's the tactic here. That's the reason for these ZIS 2 guns in the game. And getting a 15-9 is the ultimate objective. I don't need a hell of a lot of AT guns. I've only got 4 of them, and I'm upvetting them for the accuracy and for the performance of the AT gun. The enemy is going to be pushing back. He's going to be struggling. So affording a big heavy tank in B and C phase is going to be, it's going to be tough for him because he's going to have to push back. So every heavy enemy tank that goes down is a massive blow to their chances of pushing you back in C phase. So the idea is, I don't need many of them. I just need them to kill the targets. They have to kill the targets. And as long as they do, then that's it. The enemy is going to struggle. Tigers go down in C phase, Panthers going down, IS-2s, King Tigers going down in, late B phase, early C phase is really going to hand you the victory. So I don't need loads of these. I just need them to do the job to kill the enemy tank. That's why they're there at 2 stars. Finally, the SU-85. if I can't get my Zis 2 guns into an area, if there's no heavy forest for them, the Su-85 is going to virtually do the same job as what the Zis 2 gun would be doing. This thing is really my Zis 2 gun for the open or for a light forest. So where I can't get a Zis 2 gun, I'm bringing in the Su-85. Again, 2 stars for the same reason. I don't need to spam these guys out. I just need them to get the kills. So that's why they're there at the 2 stars. They aren't to hold territory. They're just there to pick up those big, important kills. Onto the anti-air tab now. Your anti-air choices aren't fantastic, but as the Russians, the Zenot 37mm is like the standard AA gun, so you're okay here. I've gone for 6 guns in total. I've up-vetted them to 1 star. Again, you know, I don't need to be bringing in loads of these guns. This isn't a heavy... You know, I'm not aiming to go like 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes in this game. I'm aiming to get this game over in 20 minutes, in 30 minutes a push. If I'm going over 30 minutes, I'm likely to lose. So I don't need a lot of these AA pieces. And I really think 6 might be too many. Even up-vetting this into 4 might be enough AA guns. Because if you've got a 15-9 and the enemy's buying planes... That's a win all day long as far as I'm concerned. If you've got a 15-9 and the enemy isn't investing in ground forces to try and push you back, then they're probably going to be losing. So, you know, AA is not absolutely vital for this kind of deck where you're rushing forwards in Vanguard or Maverick. Yeah, you want maybe 1 or 2 in there to help you out so that if you do get into a kind of a fight with your fighters, or you do bring out some of your bombers to support the attack, then you've got an AA piece in the area. And if the enemy loses a plane, boom, that's a massive blow because they're expensive. And between you and me, you know, that is going to be an even bigger blow. So that's why I've opted for the 6 guns. I don't think I really need more than that. The ZSU M17 is something that you don't see in a lot of decks. It's not fantastic, although actually having said that, 50 cows are way better in the anti-air stakes than they used to be. I would be interested in trying this one out, to be fair, but the 80 point cost just puts me off. 80 points for a vehicle of this kind of standard that can go down so easily it's just a little bit too much for me, I think, in this kind of deck. And if you are losing like 80 points in a Vanguard Maverick rush, then it is a bit of a blow early on. This can act as ground support and it can really rip to pieces enemy infantry, but it's just a little bit too risky, I think. Whereas the Zenot, if you are bringing it out, you're going to sit it behind some trees. You're going to sit it somewhere where it doesn't, you know, get fired upon. Whereas the M17, there's always that risk that you get it into combat and then you lose it, and then that's 80 points gone, but also that's like your AA gone. And, you know, you only get 2 of them in A phase. The kind of curve isn't great on them either. I just don't like this unit, and I know a lot of people share that view as well. Onto the artillery tab, we got the VZ Gvard as our B-phase infantry leaders, pretty standard. We've got the Jeep KAO 152mm off-map vehicle, 120 points. We've got this in B-phase so that I can get 2 of these vehicles, and it's to support my B-phase Maverick push. You could opt to have it in A-phase to really help you out, but I think just 1 of them in A-phase compared to 2 of them in B-phase. I mean, these are going to be some really early reinforcements in B-phase. These are going to be like my first and second call-ins in B phase to basically, you know, the aim is to have attacked in A phase and really got forwards, and then in B phase to hit them with the off map and then just rush in all of my 20-point infantry units, you know, and possibly some that I haven't used as well. So that the unit is just really strong. It's too strong to surpass up 2 of these compared to taking A phase, in my opinion. And then in C phase, I picked the F-22 76.2mm howitzers. So this was, I don't actually think this card is a great pick for this division. If you look, our C phase income is 80 points, so I can't afford one on a tick, and that's really harsh as a Maverick player. I do kind of want some kind of artillery to finish up the game. Especially if you're in a game where it's going 25 to 30 minutes and you've got like 1 minute, 2 minutes left to win the game and it's 13-11, then sometimes having artillery can really help you drag that final minute, 2 minutes out and get the victory. But at 110 points, it's just so costly for a 76.2 mil howitzer. I mean, I could bring them in without the Schnab, but then I only have 30 rounds per shot. It's possible, it's a choice, but the fact that I didn't have the supply truck really limited me. I thought about the BM824, but just the lack of supply truck, I just felt like whenever I was going to bring out one of these artillery units or any of them, it's only the F22 that can get a supply truck with it. I just thought it's basically a one-shot chance. So any of these artillery pieces, like a 60-point mortar, 65-point rocket artillery, 90-point mortar, I've got to compare that to other units that I can bring in. Is a 90-point mortar worth it when I can bring in a Sherman? That's kind of my thought. Whereas at least with a 60-point F22, well, cancel that. At least with a 110-point F22, yeah, it's like really costly, but it is going to give me kind of more value long term because I've got that supply truck. This is my theory behind why I've chosen the unit, but I'm not going to argue that it's an amazing choice. I think this is probably one of the weakest cards that I've put into this deck as it stands, because I just think the amount of times I'm going to use it is so limited. But it's a 1-point cost slot, so I've got no other choice. I've got to take an artillery unit to use up that 1 point. For ages, I was torn between the BM824 and the F22. I've decided to go with the F22, but by no means is this a great choice, honestly. Finally, we're going to go into the air tab. You actually get some pretty decent choices here. In the end, I've opted up for the Lag 3 fighter bomber in A phase with the 200 kilogram bombs, and then the P39Q Cobras, the fighters in A phase, and then the rocket plane variant in B phase. So there are some good planes in here. This is a lot open to your own choices. The IL-4s are great planes as well. They're a little bit slow, but you've seen in previous battle group AARs how good the heavy payloads are on the bombers. And if you are trying to draw out a victory, I think maybe an IL-4 with the 1,000 kilogram bomb is probably a better buy than the F-22. They're kind of going to try and perform the same function in C phase to kind of grab you that victory. But I think the IL-4 is a better buy than the F-22s there with the Schnab transport, or get them in the right transport there. But in the end, we didn't choose them. The slot costs for the aircraft are kind of harsh. I wouldn't say they're harsh, but they're a difficulty for the deck. I'd certainly like more aircraft cards if I could get them. But I think, I am using a lot of points in my infantry tab, a lot of points in my AT tab. So it starts to become much harder to afford them. I think a lot of players would opt not to take the P39 Cobras as the dedicated fighter, and they'd opt to bring in the Lag 3 instead and have them as fighter bombers. Me personally, I like to use my fighters where I can, and I like the fact that in a deck you've got a dedicated fighter card. If you lose a fighter, you do, and you've got it as a fighter bomber, you do also lose the bomber. You lose both of them. But the advantage is you don't have to buy a fighter and a bomber. So, it swings and roundabouts. In my decks, I do like to play with a little bit of theme, a little bit for fun, a little bit for entertainment. It's not all about pure performance. So the P39 Cobra does make it into the deck as the dedicated fighter. Now, my bombing choices, I could have selected between the Lag 3 with the 50 kilogram bombs or the 100 kilogram bombs. 5 points more for 100 kilogram bombs. To me, it's 100% worth it. There's no real choice there. Now, the P39Q Cobra in the B phase with the rockets might be a slightly odd choice, but I decided to go for the rocket plane for 2 reasons. The first being, as a fighter bomber, the Cobra is actually really good in the fighter role. The 37 mil head on into an enemy is really strong. It's, a 37 mil is much stronger than a 20 mil. So the Cobra versus the Lag, in the fighter role, the Cobra wins out as far as I'm concerned. And the rockets, they are still rockets at the end of the day. They can hit, you know, enemy AT guns. They can hit enemy tanks. Yeah, they're not anti-tank rockets, but they can still do some decent damage. When we compare that to the two 50-kilogram bombs as my bomber option, I think the rockets are better than the 50-kilogram bombs. If this was like a lag or maybe a yak with like 250 kilograms or bombs or 500 kilogram bombs, I'd have probably chosen like the yak rather than the P39Q. But in this choice between the rockets and the 50 kilogram bombs, I'm preferring the rockets. The other option would have been to take the IL-4s, and they're actually cheaper, but I valued this as a fighter bomber more than just having a bomber there. That's kind of why I made this decision. And remember, we're a Vanguard, we're a Maverick deck. I'm trying to come in, swoop in, pick up a ground kill, and perhaps trade 2 for 1 with a follow-up on a head-on into a fighter. That's kind of my thought with this unit. Whereas if I'm going with an IL-4, yeah, I'm going in for the ground kill, but I'm not getting that 2 for 1 because the IL-4, I'm just going to evac straight out of there. I might lose my IL-4. Whereas I'm going in with a P39Q, I might snipe an enemy HMG, an enemy AT gun, 2 for 1 into a Spitfire with the 37mm head on, you know, evac that out. And man, the value you just got out of that, 2 for 1 targets, I think it's worth it. That's my run through of the 3rd Guards Mechanized Corps. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got the strategy that I'm aiming for with this deck, and check out some gameplay footage. Remember as well, we are going to have a featured match with this division where I show off a full video with the 3rd Guards Mechanized Corps. So make sure you don't miss that video as well. Make sure you subscribe so that one gets into your feed and you don't miss it. We're up against the 20th Panzergrenz on V for Victory, which is strange. So we'll see how this one goes. We lost the previous game, so we'll see how we get on. No changes to the deck. We're just going to see this. I'm anxious to try and take the left-hand side early on. We're going to attack into B phase. I'm going to try and, you know, set up some reasonable positions, trade okay, you know, get enough units on the board that I can then push through in B phase. Okay, we do take the right-hand flag. Well, we didn't actually... Yeah. I'm going to bring a lot of infantry on this right-hand side because I think we can beat the infantry that he's got. I'm sure I had Rozvedka go over there. Damn it. Unless they got shot. That leaves me without an AT unit. So I'm going to try and get the Guardia forwards. Oh crap. I messed the orders up. We might be able to get in there. Oh, look at this. We're sneaking flags. Sneaking flag there, 14-10. If we could get a 15-9 this early. I'd be pretty chuffed with that. We haven't quite got that flag there, but we got a lot of reinforcements going in here. So we're going to attack through this center ground. I should have taken a leader in there. Oh, damn it. Ooh, flak 88. Crap. Why are you following him? Flak 88 was not on my list of expectations. double flak. Ooh, did you see him go down? No wonder we're losing. Now, how do I take those flaks out? Because I don't have artillery until C phase. Okay, even more reason to push like mental over on this side. I'm pressing the wrong keys constantly. I'm going to try and dart forward with the M2A1. Bring some units over there as well. We did manage to get the Rozvedka there. So if I can push for a 15-9 this early on. He knows where my attack's coming now. He's bringing forces in there, that's okay. We lost them for now. Okay, hopefully he didn't notice that. Let's bring more vehicles, more infantry. Okay, here's the tank. Gotta somehow get this Rozvedka to kill the tank. Let's bring my leader over there. Damn it, 2 squads in 1. I'm losing a lot of men to bad trades right now. Okay, let's bring the Rozvedka over. Yeah, I see movement in the centre. I'm okay for now. Here's the stug. That's the kill that we need. Didn't quite get the Rozvedka, but he's got another one coming in. You can get that stub kill, that'll be a massive advantage. Man, he's going for the air game.
Враг близко.
Yeah, the centre's still okay. We are losing that tank, HMG. Okay, Rozvedka, you need to get the kill here. Oh, you missed. That's not what I want to see.
Борис,
Why have I got Valentine stopped down there? Ooh, Valentine might go down here. Yeah, let's spread out units because there's an off map on the way. I think the slug went down. Okay, are we in B phase now? Not quite. Here's the off map. Come on. Panzer Grenadiers lasted really well. No, don't go in there, Guardia. You're just going to die. I think I might go for an aircraft. Looks like we've got a counter push going on.
Стрелки готовы.
Lost a couple of things up there.
Сделали.
Good job we had the Resvedka up front. Need to push into this area, I think. He's probably got a flat gun up here.
Санитар.
Если нас заметят в движении с этой штуковиной, мы трупы.
Разговорчики в строю.
Ваше приказание, товарищи. Выпущу вас там. Чёртова американская радиостанция не хочет работать. Это Сергей, цель замечена. Выпущу вас там.
We're going to need off-map to help me out.
Зацепили. Назад, назад.
Can't get through with an aircraft on the left. He's totally blocked the left off, so we are going to have to hit the right. Stood 4. I'm getting slowed down. He's rushing a lot of units in. He's got aircraft cover. He's actually doing pretty well here. I think we need to go down this street here.
Готов переводить.
Ведь в оба.
That Opel Blitz best not be a like Panzerschreck. Oh God!
Ведь в оба.
Да, давай.
That Emcha can't really take on a Stug.
Медленно. Какие будут приказы? Понял вас, прием. Слушаю. На Берлин, товарищи!
He's doing really well right now.
Есть приказы, командир.
59 though. 59's good enough.
Прикончили гадов.
На Берлин, товарищи!
Ooh, yeah, that was a bit stupid, wasn't it?
Да, товарищ. Боевое построение.
Санитар!
Выпущу вас там.
Свой настроен и ждет приказа. Борис, ложись!
Готов взять на себя командование, товарищ. Да, товарищ. Слушаю.
Right, we need to get infantry reinforcements, I think, into this area. I mean, look at that.
Арт-наводчик готов. Я ставлю вас туда вдоль.
Борис, ложись! Свой настроен и ждет приказа.
Get some anti-air up.
Зацепили!
Но осторожно. Готов к бою.
Okay, we now need to push through while we can.
Вытащите меня отсюда!
A big hole.
Камрад, камрад!
Уложись.
Okay, forget the barrage.
Припасы.
Just go.
Готов переводить.
17-7. We just need to hold now
Отступаем медленно.
to avoid his comeback.
Василий ранен.
So I need to get my AT guns up.
Нужно что-нибудь разнести. Брат,
Okay, we got something back there.
осторожнее, враг рядом. Чёртова американская радиостанция не хочет работать.
Oh,
Стрелки готовы!
Приказ вести огонь на поражение. В нас попали.
and we also need to get anti-air up.
Вытащите меня отсюда!
Сделаю. Готов переводить.
Right, when this gets there, we're going to hit this town.
Санитар!
We're not going to let up because he does have...
Ваша карета вас ждет, товарищ. Ждем
We'll pull this back slightly. He does have Viva Victory. And look at the whole area is just pinned down.
За родину!
Готов переводить. Домова газ.
Not you guys.
Готов переводить.
Примкнуть штыки!
Отступаем медленно.
Разговорчики в строю!
Kameraden, das war's.
Set one up there. Set one up right there. Tankos come in and help. Could do with a leader. And some anti-air. Right. Ready? Here we go. Well, here we almost go.
Понял вас, прием.
Оружие на изготовку! Стрелки готовы.
Да. Это Сергей.
Okay, he's pulled that one back on the right.
Борис, ложись.
Got 1 minute 30. We're almost going in here. Okay, he is pushing this area, so we are going to lose this if we're not careful.
Ваши приказания.
Because I have very little reserves back here. But we're going to open up a new front any second now.
Тут, товарищ.
What? What? Have you seen this? Have I got them as different kinds? I'm going to have to do this manually.
Да, товарищ.
Let's have a flat gun right in the area.
Да, товарищ.
Okay, we just have to be careful about this left-hand side now.
Вижу противника. Сделали их.
Расцветали яблони груши, поплыли туману над рекой. Выходила на...
Okay, 1 minute 50. I'm pretty sure we can hold.
Да, товарищ.
Будьте начеку. Враг близко. Вперед, хлопцы! Да, товарищ капитан. Я больше не могу.
Especially if we can take care of the right, we can definitely hold.
Куда мы направляемся?
1 minute 20. Oh, it's a tiger. Oh, it's a tiger P. Tiger P.
Зацепили.
Wow. Not often you see a tiger P.
Жду ваших указаний. Выпущу вас там. Да, товарищ.
Вижу противника. Санитар!
Try and take the tiger P. Oh no, we've not got enough time.
Санитар!
Let's see whether we get lucky.
Да, товарищ.
Вытащите меня отсюда!
I mean, he could still possibly get this back. I don't want to count chickens, like I've been saying several times.
Санитар!
Чёртова американская радиостанция не хочет работать. Подбросить?
Nope, we're okay. We're okay. Maverick. 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 Yeah, I mean, we traded negative there. Quite badly negative, I think, as a Maverick player. I think somebody else playing that better player wouldn't have traded so negative, but we were like, I wanted to push really hard because V for Victory, I've not played it many times lately, if really ever, many times ever in quick play 1v1 ranked. This was a ranked game. So I was really conscious that I did not want this to go long into C phase. Once we found an opportunity on the right hand side, we just needed to push through, and that's where the infantry numbers come in, and we took advantage really. 21 minutes 48 seconds. So our kills shouldn't be like that spectacular, if I'm honest. It was a Valentine Mark 9 that picked up the Stug 4 kill. These Valentines are a lot better, I think. since the range change. You can guarantee that they're going to engage, or you can use them to engage at a range much more beneficial to the Valentine. And as long as you use them in A phase really quite early on, the speed doesn't matter as much as if you're trying to reinforce with the Valentine. And they are slow as hell. But against Stugs, they clearly did their job today. And against Shermans, they are very impressive. We actually killed 2 Panzerschrecks, look, with that one. I imagine they were in the trucks. Yeah, not much really to tell in the kills game. And the losses, the Flag 41 start really surprised me. But the one thing that it did do was it allowed me to realise that he didn't have that much on the ground, and especially when I saw 2 of those Flak 41s up. I think he had them so far behind his line, I hesitate to say almost as like a defense mechanism, so that you wouldn't spot them, so that you wouldn't necessarily know that he had 2 Flak 41s from the start. But yeah, I mean, spotting someone that's got 2 Flak 41s at the start of the game and you're on Maverick income, that's like a big light bulb. You should be pushing as hard as humanly possible. And he brought in a lot of aircraft as well, so that did not help his ground game. I mean, he must have had so few units on with the amount of aircraft that he bought and Flak 41. And then you saw me just pouring in 15 and 20 point infantry, even though his pioneers were much better quality infantry and he was doing pretty decent with them at one point. If he's not ordering in those ground reinforcements because he's buying flak guns and aircraft, then his front line is going to collapse at some point. So we took advantage of that. Oh, the elephant as well. The elephant did come on and kill the Valentine Mark 9. They were to sort these icons out. They're not that good. So I've played 5 games with this deck. I've won 4 of them. And honestly, I am not changing a thing. I built this deck. This is exactly how I built it. And yeah, no changes. No changes at all. I'm really happy with that. I think if I was going to look at some changes, in particular, the 2 things I would really look at, perhaps 3 things. The Gvardia in C phase, I might remove that card, if I'm honest. I think you could bring in maybe Sapri in A phase. You know, 5 of those I think might be better than having a C phase Guardia card. I had some games that did go fairly long, and I don't think I ever touched this C phase card of Guardia. It's kind of a backup card, so I'm happy for it to be in there, but that would be a card that I perhaps look at changing. Also, the Emcha in C phase as well. This could be a card that I look at changing for exactly the same reasons. Not quite sure I need 15 Emchas. I mean, 20 Shermans in total, 800 points. That's what, 1,600 points for the entire game for a 30-minute game, because if it goes longer than 30 minutes, I'm probably going to lose it anyway. I think 15 is a little bit excessive. I would probably look at upvetting that and just taking 7. And then finally, the other card I think that I'd most likely look at changing is the C-phase card of F22 76.2s. I think I might prefer to put in the BM8s. Perhaps one of them in A-phase. But the thing is, with this card, the fact that I've got no supplies in the deck is kind of a one-shot card. So that's why I initially resisted. I might even consider putting in the artillerists for some recon with the Dushka, perhaps. Might be a way to get a cheap, vehicle, a cheap Dushka in. There's other options, but yeah, I think I'd be closest to picking the BM824. Maybe 4 of them in C phase, 65 points. It's just a one shot. They're not going to do a lot of killing, but they may. I guess in C phase, the enemy's going to be trying to take back points from you. So there could be times where they're going to be pushing forwards infantry in large numbers because they're unbalanced, trying to take back a point. and a rocket attack onto those infantry could be just in time to kind of save the day as a final last stand to stop them taking a flag. Whereas the F-22, 110 points, I'm not sure I ever see a time where I'm going to bring that in. But I played with this deck 5 games, I won 4 of them, and the game that I did lose, unfortunately I didn't record it. I thought I was doing live commentary on the record. I stupidly forgot to press the record button, so I was there commentating on the game, not realizing that it wasn't recording. I did lose it, but what I would say is it was the first game that I played for about a week. Yeah, I think I'd have a full week off, so I was feeling really rusty. And although I'm making excuses here, I think I genuinely could have won that game if I'd have played it perhaps at the end of the run of 3rd Guards Mechanized Corps games, you know, where I'd played them quite often, knew the deck really well, and was not rusty with my micro. So genuinely, I think I could have made it 5 wins out of 5, 100% win rate with the deck. But as it stands, 80% win rate. I'm more than happy with the performance that I put in. I'm more than happy with the performance in the deck. So for the first time in the Battle Group AARs, we're getting a deck built from scratch. We played 5 games, and genuinely, I'm not going to touch it. Let's talk about my favourite unit of the division. I know exactly what I'm going to pick. The Valentine Mark 9. This thing was really just performed above all expectations for me. In the past, this thing's definitely been overlooked. The road speed is absolutely terrible, and the off-road speed even worse. But yeah, 85mm of frontal armor, 115 pen on the 6-pounder, and 12 rounds a minute at 1,500 meter range. You can pop stuff one after the other, and this thing trades up in value so well. I was taking out T-34 85s all day long with these Valentine Mark 9s, and I am a British person, so obviously I have a fondness for the British equipment. And the Valentine Mark 9, the Valentine itself, by this stage of the war, is actually a pretty old kind of tank in terms of the, you know, the evolution of tanks. So having it perform so well was really just fantastic to see. I absolutely love the unit, and I definitely recommend you give this one a try now. So the scoring for the 3rd Guards Mechanized Corps. Let's start off with the Recon tab, 4 points. The Partisani Sniper, pretty strong. The double Rozvedka card, pretty strong. The T-34 76 Rozvedka, okay. I've given this a 4 points. You get quite a lot of slot choices. The units aren't too bad. I think they're just above average. I mean, the Rozvedka are great units, and the Sniper as well, so 4 points. Infantry, 5 points. 5 out of 5 for infantry. It's a very aggressive infantry tab that you can build. The Partisani DP at just 15 points are fantastic, and the 20-point infantry you can get all day long. Out of 5, 5 points. The tank tab, I've given this 4 out of 5. Shermans, I think in the past, I would have given it 5 out of 5 just for the amount of Sherman cards you can have. But Shermans at now 80 points aren't quite as good as they were. The stars of the show, as far as I'm concerned now, are the Valentine Mark 9s. 4 points out of 5, I think, is definitely deserved for that tank tab. Support, just 1 point. The support tab definitely lets this deck down. The choices you get aren't fantastic. I mean, the Augmented, the MG42 and the Ombudsman, you're going to take them, but all of the other choices aren't exactly great, and the slot costs aren't great either. I give it a 1. Anti-tank tab, 5 out of 5. Similar to the tank and the infantry tab. I mean, the anti-tank tab is just great. You get the Gvard Panzerschreck, you get the Su-76 MPTs, great units, Su-85, ZIS-2 guns, they're all great units. And there's loads of units in the anti-tank tab that I didn't even take. If anything, it's slightly sad that, you know, the slot costs are quite expensive, but then I guess they need to be that expensive, and because otherwise I'd be taking the whole anti-tank tab, every single unit if I could. The anti-air tab, 2 points. The Zenort 37mm are okay, but that's about it. They're just okay, and the other choices aren't great either, so 2 points. The artillery tab, also 2 points. I think, for me, the Jeep 152mm off map gets 2 points on its own, and then the rest of the artillery tab is kind of mediocre. I think maybe 2 points is a little bit harsh, but 2 points is what I'm giving it. The air tab, 3 points. The Cobras, I think, are great planes. The Lags, also great in A-phase as fighter bombers. You've also got bombers that I didn't even take in the deck. Unfortunately, the air cost, the activation points in the air tab are kind of expensive. I think 3 points is pretty fair for that air tab. So my final score, 26 points in total. And I think this is going to be one of the stronger decks. Having looked at the scoring comparison, 26 points is, I think, quite a strong score, and the Third Guards Mechanized should end up fairly high on the list. So I think, having looked at this, there's going to be quite a tight group of decks. The range of scores we got so far is from 22 to 28. I think Third Guards Mechanized and Second New Zealand are going to be pretty high up the list, and they're at 26 to 28. And I think Group Hardening is probably going to be fairly low at 22. So I think the actual gap in scoring isn't going to be as wide as what I initially thought it would. We might have to toggle around how we're doing the scoring to kind of give a greater spread in the deck scoring system, because although it is just a bit of fun, I do want it to be, you know, kind of a bit of fun, and I don't want all the decks to be like, well, there to be like 20 different decks on 24 points, and then 20 different decks on 25 points, you know, and then a few decks either side. I do want a little bit of a spread. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. In the fun rating, I've given this a 4 stars out of 5, and I think for a lot of people this would be a 5 out of 5 in terms of the fun rating. Definitely towards the start of the game as well, I think the Third Guards Mechanized Corps was stronger than it is now. And a lot of people will really love this deck. You can be really aggressive with it. If you're the kind of player, maybe like a Nilla type player, that you want to be really strong from the start, you want to be aggressive, you want to use infantry tactics, but being backed up by great equipment, then the Third Guards Mechanized Corps is definitely for you. I've given it a 4 out of 10. I think because there are times when I get bored of doing the same thing over and over again. So I think that's a little bit harsh to take a star away for that reason, but then, you know, I'm in control of the fun rating, so I guess 4 stars is what it's going to get. I definitely had a lot of fun with the games that I played, and I think you guys would enjoy the Third Guards Mechanized Corps as well. So having a look at the decks that we've played so far, it sits there in second place behind the Second New Zealand. A very similar style deck, although I built the Second New Zealand as a balanced. You could play it in this kind of light as a Vanguard Maverick style deck, but the Third Guards Mechanized, I definitely enjoyed that more than the New Zealand division. I think the addition of the Valentine Mod 9s, the Partisani DP, and the Infantry tab as a whole, being a Russian Infantry tab, kind of makes me feel a bit more kind of makes me feel a bit more kind towards the Third Guards Mechanized than the New Zealand. I just feel like I like the Third Guards more. I think some of the problem with the Allied divisions is they're really, really similar. You know, it's kind of gets a little bit samey. Whereas I think, well, I mean, there's so many divisions out now, it's kind of hard for Eugen to avoid that samey kindness. But I think with the Third Guards Mechanized, you kind of get a mix between allies, between the Western allies and the Russians, really, because you've got the Shermans in there, you've got the bazookas with the Rizvedka, you do have a sniper in there, which is very kind of Western. They get a lot of snipers, but then you also get like the Russian aircraft, not the Western aircraft, and I just dislike the Western aircraft a lot. You also get a lot of the infantry is Russian, and I kind of prefer that to the Western infantry because it's just all the same. It's just rifles, more rifles. Whereas this division, you know, you've got some Partisani, you've got Guardia, you've got Aftermichiki, you've got Tanko Disaniki. You know, there's a little bit of a mix rather than rifles late, rifles. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit more mix of units. You've even got the Gvardia Panzerschreck in there, and the Ace, the Su-76 MPT Averen, the Omsburn. It's just a little bit more variety than a Western Allied division. So I've got to say, I think I'd prefer the 3rd Guards Mechanized. If I was going to compare it to the 2nd New Zealand, I think I'd pick the 3rd Guards Mechanized every time. In terms of win rate, we had a fantastic time with the 3rd Guards Mechanized Corps. 80% of games won. And really, as a new and beginner player, I think once you get to the point where you're competent at using units, Vanguard and Maverick and the aggressive style of these kind of decks can definitely help you win a lot of games on the ranked queue. I tend to lean more towards balance, but I definitely enjoyed Vanguard and Maverick when I play it. And you can see in the gameplay as well, I feel like I am pretty competent with a Vanguard Maverick deck, and it can get you a lot of wins. In this case, it got me a lot of wins, 80% win rate with this deck. All of the decks that I'm going to put up on all of these Battle Group AARs, they aren't perfect decks. They aren't optimized for pure performance. That's not how I build the decks. I do build them for fun, entertainment. You know, the Valentine Mark 9s, if I was building for pure performance, I would have those in the deck now. But when I actually built the deck, I wouldn't have put them in the deck because I chose the Valentine Mark 9s because I thought, oh, it'd be entertaining to have the Valentine Mark 9s in the deck. And then they just turned out to be friggin' awesome. I think that's enough chatter. I think that's enough chatter from me. I'm sure that you understand all of the points that I'm raising. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Make sure you stay tuned for the featured matches. We're going to have 2 featured matches with this battle group again. I had 2 great games that I really enjoyed with, you know, some nice gameplay in it. And when I do pick my featured matches, I try to make it so that there are elements of the gameplay that are a little bit different, so that, you know, hopefully you guys are going to enjoy it. It's not the same game over and over again, if that makes sense. Thanks very much for watching. I am Alpha Bird. The dog has perked up, and we'll both of us, I'm sure, see you again soon.